Atrioc says a lot of dumb shit in his last video.
Thing from it. Yeah, we'll tell you about that too. You think China could fix its demographic issues? They're pressuring women trying to get pregnant. Every country's trying to figure this out, dude. I think Trump proposed a $5,000 check if you are a woman that has a baby. Every country is trying to figure out this demographic problem. I want to do a deeper episode on, like, maybe it's Lemonade Stand, maybe it's a Marketing Monday, but on all the different methods that are being tried, because the problem is getting, you know, extremely serious. There will be relatively soon a Korea with one old person per one young person or one working age person. A society cannot support that many old people. You know, usually you need 4 to 5 working age people for every old people to support a social safety net.
One thing, Ben Shapiro said this in a video once, and it drove people up the wall, but I think I actually agree, and it's probably one of the meanest things. This would be my most capitalist take ever, I guess, maybe. Or I don't know if you consider this capitalist or not, but it feels shitty, but in one area, we probably need to dramatically change our expectations of what life can look like, and that area is probably retirement. I think that it used to be that we just kind of assume that once a person is, you know, 60, 65, their body is old and broken down and they can't really work anymore, and now they just need to retire. And I think in that world, I think it was okay because people were dying, you know, 65, 70, whatever, and you could support that person. But you run into this weird issue where old people are huge drags on society in several ways. One, this is one that I just made up, and I don't know how true this is, but I bet it's pretty true, is that they still occupy a ton of fucking homes, okay? And we need these houses. We need to free up these fucking houses. And the only way we can do it is with these old people fucking die, okay? So that's one, is homes. But I don't know how big of a problem that is. My guess is it's a big problem, but... The second one is healthcare. Old people consume a lot of healthcare resources. It's kind of insane how much old people consume healthcare resources. And if you are older, every year you live is another hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially of healthcare resources that you're consuming that could be going towards so many other different things in society. And they're occupying hospitals, they're occupying money, they're occupying time spent taking care of them. There's just so much. And for every like extra year these people live, it's just such a drain on our entire economy. It might be that retirement needs to be like 70 or 72 or something, that age needs to be bumped up a little bit because as lifespans increase and then healthcare expenditures increase, it's just, yeah, oof, I don't know.
1-to-1 is not doable. Purge for old people is crazy. I'm sorry, are you saying that like someone was saying it wasn't crazy? Are you saying someone like the normal idea was purge for old people and you're like, wait, I'm going to take a stand against this? Is anyone supporting a purge for old people? Two theories on that.
Sorry, hell no, I mean.
Number one, are we saying we are going to mass murder old people? Purge. Or, more interestingly, are we saying we have the purge day like the movie, but only for old people? So everybody else lives their life as normal, but on purge day, if you are above a certain age, the laws don't apply.
Oh, shit.
You can kill other old people. Old people Hunger Games. People get executed at age 70. Logan's Run type shit. I guess referencing Logan's Run means I'm a candidate for murder. That's an old ass movie, bro. That's an old ass movie. That's like the 3 pints. He's old, get him! And kill him! I think that if we were to make a law that killed old people at 70 years old, you, Jesus, at age 69, nice, would want to change the law. I think you would get to 69 and you'd be like, I feel like this law's kind of run its course. Nice. I don't know about you guys. I feel like, honestly, with the advances in modern health, we should probably change it. Have you considered we can solve all the deficit issues by doing a billionaire round of taxes, pay them, or double it and give it to the next billionaire? No. We can't, right?
Okay.
Because even if everybody doubles it, until it gets to the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, and he can't double it again, I guess, because he's the last one. And then we took all of his wealth. It would not even come close to solving our deficit issue. We could seize all of his wealth and it would cover our recent addition this year to the military budget. I guess that would be nice. Man, I'll take it. All right. I'll tell you this. Seizing all of Elon's wealth and putting it towards the military budget would be a bigger deficit reduction than Doge has done in its entirety. By a lot.
True.
By a lot. By a significant amount. So, at the very least, there would be progress.
So, this will be one of the things I bring out more than anything else when I start debating conservatives again, is the how do you live with yourself seeing how insane the underdelivery was of all the Doge shit? That has to just invoke the most unbelievable cognitive dissonance, no? How could you be okay with that? That's just so wild. Jesus.
Why don't we just take the military and go steal wealth from other countries? Genghis Khan quote. Hitler quote. George Bush quote. No, dude. George Bush only lost our own wealth. People have this idea that George Bush went to Iraq.
How'd you feel about the debate event you did? It seemed to me that they needed more Trump supporters given the theme. Yeah. I mean, I thought it went well, like logistically and everything. This was like my first event with this guy, so it was more a trial just to see if he could run it and not have like everything get fucked up. But I mean, it seemed like it ran pretty well. The only issue that I had was it was like you said, there's not like a bunch of ardent Trump supporters, although that's probably mainly due to the fact that it's my audience, right? So it's mainly my audience that's going to be the one showing up. So there's not going to be as many people there that are super big Trump fanatics. But I also feel like, dude, it's hard. If you want to really go to bat for the Trump admin now, that's a hard gig. Because, god damn, there's just so many. I don't even think it's me being like more politically informed now. I just think there's just so much bad shit to draw from. Like, damn, that's a hard argument that you're going up against that.
And we made a bunch of money. We plundered. We didn't make any money. We didn't get any oil. We just burned cash. Nothing. The only people that made money was Halliburton. That's it. It was just a loss. It's not like British Empire in India. There's nothing. There's no gain. Tyrese Halliburton made all the money. Maybe the real WMDs is the friends we made along the way. Yeah, maybe when they said there was WMDs in Iraq, they meant like W my dudes.
Okay.
W's my dudes. And they thought it would be like a good time. That's what they thought. That's crazy. The next thing you're gonna tell me is that we didn't win the Vietnam War and we gained nothing from it. Yeah, I'll tell you about that too. One of the truly original sins of the downfall of what you call the golden age of America post-World War II is the Vietnam War. Because it was deeply expensive and we couldn't afford it and we had to break the whole financial system and get off gold standard because of it. And that led to, ever increasing deficits. Gold standard is moronic. Why? Can't be ChatGPT though. We'll know. Why? There isn't enough gold for global commerce? Was there enough gold for global commerce between 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s? There's enough gold if you don't run massive deficits. The reason they had to get off the standard was because of the Vietnam War. Because France saw that we were printing money for the Vietnam War, took that printed money and tried to reimburse it for gold. That's a large part of the boom and bust cycles that constantly happened. Yes, we constantly had small and shallow recessions that allowed the underbrush to be cleared. Now we try to repress the recessions with monetary policy and they end up bigger and more dangerous. We had flat inflation until off the gold standard. Flat. For decades. There's an argument for that. That's the same as gold. Oh, he's backtracking. He's backtracking. Interesting, bro. I heard flat inflation is bad, like 1% is that corp BS? For a regular person, the flatter the inflation, the better. You would like the money that you to earn, to hold its purchasing power as much.
I don't know if that's true. ordinary person is damaged by inflation more, or I feel like it could go either way. I would say that because inflation is greatly beneficial if you have assets. Poor people are probably a little bit less likely to have assets than wealthy people, I would imagine. But if you own a house or something, then that's an asset that would probably benefit because, and then people that have debt are also less likely to, or people with debt would be more likely to benefit from inflation. Although rich people would have more debt as well. Rich people just have more of everything, I guess. Get fucked. Poor losers.
It's possible. The ideal is 1 to 3% to avoid deflation. I mean, again, this number was just sort of made up. I mean, the 2% number just comes from the New Zealand central bank one time, and everybody sort of ran with it. There's not like a magic to it. And in general, central banks that say they target an average of 2% over time, when it goes above 2%, never target a period of deflation to bring prices back down. They just, you know what I'm saying? They never try to average it out. They just go over and then try to get it back. Wouldn't zero inflation discourage spending and encourage saving, or leading to lower economic growth? Zero inflation would not do that. Technically, massive deflation would do that. In that you would choose not to spend now because in theory, it would get cheaper in the future. In practice, the only time we have real massive deflation is during extreme recessions. Not just massive any deflation. No, that's not true. In regular moments of small deflations, people still buy things they need to use now.
By the way, the retirement spending on old people is one of the big problems in France, and it's why Macron and his government are unpopular there. Damn. I actually don't know enough about macroecon to argue this point, if you're gonna like dive into it. There are a lot of meme arguments I give, but I know some of the counter arguments to them, and I don't actually know all the counter arguments to the counter arguments. But I just do a blind appeal to authority, and I say, if a gold standard is truly better for your economy, why is it that every single central banking system in the world seems to have gone the way of fiat currencies? I don't understand why everybody is making this supposedly horrible mistake. But I don't know if I would have the macroecon to like actually hash that take out.
Economic purchases are not made entirely by an actor trying to ration out for the next 100 years. They're trying to use things. They need to buy and use things that they have to use day to day. What percentage of the economic output is purely for needs? It doesn't have to be needs. You know, celebrating a birthday party is not a need, but you would do it. You know what I'm saying? You would have events. You would go to concerts. You would do it. We should go full Japan and get zero inflation. Japan has inflation right now. Japan has inflation as
it's not only a big problem in France, it's all EU countries that have a problem. France just has the biggest problem because they retire really young. Gotcha.
Had a very lucky period of low inflation, and then they printed money nonstop during it, saying that they wanted to get some inflation, and then they got some inflation, and it turns out that their rationale was a lie. Okay, and they just built their whole economy on printing money, and they're still doing it, and the inflation is now hard to control, and their currency is getting wrecked. If we can somehow control hyperinflation when having a small period of hyperinflation to pay off debt it would work for paying off debt. It would ruin the lives and savings of every worker. It would be societally catastrophic, but you would get the government out of its pickle. There's a great book, When Money Dies, about Weimar Germany about that. What is Ludwig saying? Nakini dashite kudasai is a totally unique phrase made by the locals to discourage foreigners from entering Japanese people's stores. Is that like D's nuts or something? What did I just say? I'll say it in Japan, for sure. I trust you. I'm sure it means well. Please burst inside me.
Because it's addicting to stimulate the economy without gold keeping you in check. I mean, you say addicting like it's just a drug addict, but I mean, I'm pretty sure it causes like good things to happen for all the people involved in the economy, no?
About this, he's part of the problem. But my understanding, because we just had 2 Japanese nationals staying with us, Ari's maid of honor, Juno, and her husband, the tourism there is insane right now. It has never been this, you could say good or bad, but the number of people, overwhelming. And the currency, yeah, I mean, the currency is a major part of it. It's just cheap to go there. It feels extra bad because the tourists have way more money and walk around like this is so cheap. Yeah, dude. That's what I'm saying. The Japanese economy is not good. And the yen is shit. But at least Trump is wrecking the dollar too, so we can be like that. Except nobody wants to tourist. No one wants to travel here.
Based.
Our tourism is way down.
How is it the dollar's getting weaker and tourism is down at the same time? It's because people aren't traveling. There's no economic reasons. That's who have cultural reasons.
Down. So at least we won't have that problem.
Let me get a Red Bull 1 sec. Trump coin pops. Wait, what?
Today's number, 283. That's the percentage increase in viewership of the movie Conclave, the day after Pope Francis died. Ed, what does a priest's scrotum look like?
Oh, boy. I don't know. What does a priest's scrotum look like?
Come on, man. Every child knows that.
Jesus.
Welcome to Prop G Markets. Rest in peace, El Papa. Rest in peace. I just love that JD Vance killed the Pope. I absolutely love that. It answers the fuck, marry, kill, right? We got the couch, we got his wife, now we got the kill. I'm recycling everything. I'm a walking meme right now, Ed. I'm a walking meme. What's going on with you? It's time for
Oh man, you ever hang out with somebody and you're just like laying down together and you're chilling and you're like, have you seen this? Have you seen that? And then you've seen everything because you guys browse like the same fucking meme Reddits and shit, and it's just like an eternity of reflective yes.
banter.
Let's see, what is going on with me? I hung out with Anthony Scaramucci yesterday, which was very fun.
The mooch? Where did you hang out with Anthony?
I went to his office, went to Skybridge, he took me around, showed me all of his paraphernalia and his books. And by the way, I learned that Anthony was a classics major.
Yeah, he has sort of this Long Island feel about him, but he's not that Long Island people aren't well read, but he's very, you get the sense he's kind of a blue collar guy. He's actually very well read and very intelligent. I like him a lot.
I'm a huge fan of his.
Let me guess, you're starting a podcast. The rest is Ed. Isn't there something? The rest is Polly. The rest is Ed.
I think you're starting a podcast with him.
We're doing something, a limited series called The Lost Boys.
What is that, your 20th podcast? What are we at now?
Well, look, every one I do, I make another 10 or 12 bucks in gross margin. So, baby needs new shoes. And listen how dreamy my voice is. Like, now look at me. Listen to my voice. Now look at me. Enough said. Podcasts. Podcasts.
The moneymaker.
You know it. By the way, how was your time with your father?
It was great. I had a great time.
And your parents live in the UK? Is that? Oh, no, they live here now.
No. They're still in London. Yeah, he was just visiting.
Not that I don't know anything about you, Ed. What's your last name again? Wait, hold on.
Yeah, see, banter for us is just sort of
Have
like
you seen this? World's first sperm race. I
Yes.
saw it posted on Reddit. I don't know how true. Is this actually like a real thing?
One!
Oh shit! They're going. Who's winning?
Once they enter the chamber, we are
Are you guys ready? Oh!
This is enormous!
Shit!
Jimmy is off to the races! This might not even be close!
Oh my
All of
god!
those years of YouTube!
Who is that?
The feminist! The 800 credit score! Jimmy is long gone! No, his swimmers aren't even on the screen! This is
that
a
Jimmy?
microscopic masterclass! Tag! Jimmy! Tag! Unbelievable! He came prepared!
what the fuck?
Insemination!
See, you're nuts!
Jesus Christ.
Jimmy!
Okay.
like getting to know each other, right?
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
still not quite there yet. Been 4 years, but we're getting close.
They live in the UK.
Wait.
You're essentially creating.
Let's move on to Boeing. And Boeing's earning. Scott,
Hold on. Gay couple pulls out guns on teens.
Out of the way. What? What am I gonna do? Just go. Just go. What was that? You had something else to say over there? Yeah. We are. Yeah. What's wrong with that?
Which one? You or him?
Snowflakes, dude. Snowflakes.
Alexa, record.
Wait, what the fuck? Hold on, I'm sorry. Wait, who the fuck are these people?
Dude, snowflakes.
Alexa.
Wait, what? I feel like we were in a Target parking lot and then we switched to Dune 2. What? What just happened?
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
Who?
Which one? You or him?
Snowflakes, dude. Snowflakes.
Alexa, record.
Give me the gun? Bro, what are you doing?
You guys will.
Whoa, shit! Oh, bro, what are you doing?
Hey. Drive illegally. Drive. I know. Keep your wrong.
Okay, super reckless, not good. I don't approve at all. Kind of epic, but in like a very irresponsible way, such that if he would have shot or killed anybody, I would be 100% against him. But Jesus.
your thoughts, starting with Trump coin. Trump is inviting the top holders of Trump coin to an exclusive dinner and also a VIP tour of the White House. This is great news, isn't it?
I think we are hit a new low where we're selling off access to the president in a dinner based on his Swiss, who puts the most money in a Swiss banking account. And the reality is, these are the amateurs or the people, the cultists who are fascinated by him. The most important people in terms of the Trump meme coin would never show up, because what they've done is they've bought a bunch of meme coins, probably with his permission or his encouragement, in exchange for geopolitical advantage from America. It would never dare thinking of showing up. I got to give it to him for being this transparent. I think the Democrats have what I call low-grade co-corruption, where Speaker Emeritus Pelosi trades stocks for tens or hundreds of thousands or maybe millions. And he's like, if you're going to be corrupt, go big and create a vessel.
Hello, Stephen.
Hi, what's up?
The third.
How's it going? What's up?
I voted today.
Yeah? Did you feel good about your vote?
Huh?
Did you feel good about your vote?
I did. I feel like I made the right choice.
Well, good for you. Do you want to share who you voted for, or you just...
Who I voted for?
What?
You want to know who I voted for? Which party?
Yeah, of course. We all do.
I voted conservative.
Oh, man. For Pierre? Or
Yeah.
actually, wait. You're a resident Canadian. When you guys vote,
Yeah.
what are you actually voting for? Do you just like put like a party name, or do you vote for a politician, or what exactly?
Yeah, there's like a regional representative. So it wasn't like actually for Polyev. I forget the guy's name, but it's explicitly stated what party they're affiliated with.
Okay. So you're just
Yeah.
voting for your members of parliament, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
So-
basically. So you vote for the member of parliament, and then based on the total number of votes that they get in parliament, it's kind of weird. Our electoral system is a little strange. But yeah, you basically vote for a member of parliament, and then based on the total amount of seats they get, then that, party ends up getting the members of that party basically elect who they want to represent them and be the prime minister.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to? My audience is mad that you voted conservative. Would you like to share why you voted conservative?
Yeah, so conservatives here aren't Donald Trump, so I just want to make that clear. I think I've seen this a lot. There's people in the Canadian government who are seen as kind of silly, stupid, kind of whack jobs here, that when Americans talk to them, they're like, oh, wow, Canadian politicians are so smart. But like they're seen as kind of stupid here. So the people who kind of get elected into government here, they're not like crazy Christian ethno-nationalist KKK members that want to exterminate all trans people and make sure that Israel's safe so that the second coming of Jesus Christ will be assured.
Okay.
So even some of the dumber people here, they're a lot more reasonable and rational. So the Conservative Party doesn't really align with some of my social values. Like they are kind of anti-trans. They're sort of the types of people where we need to, sort of have a definition for man and woman. They don't really, like, their platform is sort of like, we're fine with people transitioning, but we don't want to allow children to transition. They kind of want to make sure that people can only transition at 18. I don't really
So
agree
I don't know
with
anything
that.
about Canadian politics, but one question I have my guess would be that aren't the conservative people probably more anti-vegan, or is that not a huge electoral concern? I guess.
It's not really, there's not really any difference between parties. Like the big thing moving forward is going to be lab-grown meat. None of them have really talked about lab-grown meat being a problem. I know that the Liberal government did invest in, I think they did invest in some lab-grown meat. I know they invested in meat alternatives, but it's not really that big of a deal for me. For some crazy reason, nobody wants to ban the seal hunt. It's like a weird,
What's a seal
touchy
hunt?
subject. Yeah, so Native Americans living up in Nunavut, they literally club baby seals and then they sell their fur as clothing. And they've been using the excuse that it's like a
Part of their
cultural
culture.
tradition of theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really do it just for money. That's all it really is. It's not. And even if it was a cultural tradition, you're clubbing baby seals. That's just crazy, unhinged lunacy. But yeah, no party is willing to interfere with that because of like the weird touchiness of
Everything with your
Native
natives,
American
yeah.
relations. Yeah. But the basic reason I voted for conservatives is liberals have been in government for 10 years.
The
By and
liberal
large-
decade.
Yeah, by and large, they've made everything worse. We've had terrible GDP growth, pretty bad inflation. Housing market has been terrible. It was going up under the previous conservative leadership, but it continued to go up under the liberal leadership as well, even though they promised to lower housing costs and build more houses. Carney has actually had a pretty close relationship with Justin Trudeau. He was his economic advisor. Apparently, they're also familially related by like some marriage. I think they're like technically cousins or something, because they have a relative that's married to each other. So they actually have a deceptively close relationship. And Carney's his housing plans are very similar to the previous administration's housing plans. So that doesn't really bode well. The liberals have already tried this and it went nowhere. So since they've had this record of incompetence, I just don't have any faith in Carney at all. So I'll admit the Conservatives' housing plan, it's not great. They're kind of lacking a lot of specific details, but give them a chance. Like, I mean, again, the Liberals have had 10 years and they've done absolutely nothing, so whatever, can't be worse. Trying something different can't be worse than, nothing at all. And on top of that, Liberals have had terrible, terrible, literal pro-crime policies. They've been trying to enforce mandates where judges have a literal catch and release policies. So they've been getting rid of like mandatory bond, and it's resulted in criminals just being released. They haven't really had any tough on crime policies, and they've been trying to ban guns. And this has all led to massive increases in crime. Firearms violence in particular has doubled under the Liberal government. Their whole gun ban thing is a complete joke. The only reason they're doing it is because they think it'll get them more votes. It's not because they think it will actually reduce gun violence. They themselves admit all the illegal guns that are being used to commit crimes, they're coming across the US border. None of them are being bought legally. They also know that the firearm ban that they want to implement is completely impossible. They've tried to get the police force to, go door to door and confiscate weapons, and literally every single police agency in the country has refused. They're saying it's way too risky, and given that none of these guns are being used to commit crimes, we're not going to go along with it because it comes with all these risks, no benefits. They've also tried to get people to willfully turn in their guns. Nobody's doing it. And on top of that, they've been trying to get Canada Post and some other mail carrier services to help with gun confiscation. And they've also refused for obvious reasons, because what mail delivery service is going to want to pick up weapons that could be loaded, could be dangerous? None of their employees are trained in handling firearms. So it's all a joke, and it pretty much sums up the Liberal government. It's all show, no go. Everything is just some stupid game with lots of stupid promises that they know aren't going to work, but they do it anyway because they think it'll make them more popular, get votes. And they're just completely ineffectual. It's gotten to a point where the Toronto Police Service has literally put out a public service announcement telling people to leave their keys near their front door so that when they're the victim of a home invasion, these home invaders will just see their car keys, right out the front door and then steal their car and go off, rather than directly confronting you, looking in your bedroom, holding you at gunpoint, and then creating a more dangerous situation. And again, all the while, they're trying to confiscate our firearms. There have been a lot of high-profile cases that have been absolutely ridiculous, where people have used firearms in self-defense. Some of these cases, they actually wrestled the gun away from the home invader and shot at them, and these people were actually getting criminally prosecuted. So conservatives at least give you like human dignity. They want to defend your firearms rights. They have a clear tough on crime policy. Some of they're really not a big fan of the carbon tax, and the way the carbon tax was implemented was fucking ridiculous. Like a lot of houses run off of like propane and natural gas, and it massively increases your heating costs. And it's Canada. Like, you have to heat your home or else you'll literally freeze. It can get to -40 in here, and I live in southern Ontario. So they're just arbitrarily increasing costs for heating, and a lot of people, again, they're broke, job market isn't great, and they're just making things more expensive for everybody. So I kind of like some of their policies when it comes to reducing some cost of living things. So that's basically why I voted conservative.
All right. Well, everyone in chat is mad as fuck at you and says you're lying about half the shit you said, but I have no idea about Canadian politics, so I guess we'll see what happens.
Well, are any of them even Canadian?
Yeah, I have a lot of Canadian viewers.
Well, they're clearly gay and or retarded.
Okay.
Lib
nice.
cucks, you know what I'm saying?
Maybe. Do you care about the climate change stuff at all, or do you think that's largely overblown?
Well, I care about it. The problem is there's literally no practical way to deal with it right now. I think, obviously investing in green energy, particularly nuclear, is a great idea. The issue is nobody is willing to invest in nuclear just because of how expensive it is and zoning costs and issues. Solar's great, but it doesn't have the kind of applications that most people think it has. Like, oh, we could just have solar panels on every house. Well, it's more expensive than nuclear. It also comes at like an environmental cost too. You have to replace solar panels. There's a lot of heavy metals involved. Recycling can be an issue. So nuclear is the way to go, but again, it's expensive and it's difficult to implement.
All right, you know what? It's because everybody's so fucking ass pained right now. Listen, if you're Canadian and you want to fight with vegan gains, jump into stream disagreements, okay?
But yeah, again, too, the big thing with climate change is just our transportation infrastructure. North America is just fucking terrible for transportation. Like, it's a very widespread area. You're talking about lots of urban sprawl. We don't have good mass transport. We have to rely on cars, and electric cars just suck. Electric charging infrastructure sucks. For the time being, we're kind of gonna have to use gas. There certainly is a need to switch to electric, and I'm not really sure the best way to go about that, especially in a northern climate where it gets fucking cold. Pushing people towards electric cars doesn't seem to work all that well here. Again, especially since compared to Europe, we have a lot more urban sprawl. It's harder to implement electric charging infrastructure. Nobody really knows what kind of battery technology we're going to use in the future. We're kind of switching from lithium-ion to sodium-ion. That's going to affect what charging systems or stations you can use, or what software they're gonna need to run.
Yeah, sure. Wait, per sec. I drug you in here. You gonna say anything, or what the fuck?
You want me to cut him off? He's going on a yap sesh. I'm gonna let him go.
Well, you came in here to say something. I was gonna yap all day. What do you want?
Yeah, Fiji, I want to know, what particularly do you support in the Conservative Party that you believe that Poilievre would do better over Carney?
Well, I think some general public policies. So they're going to be harder on crime. They're going to lock up repeat offenders, especially for violent offenses. They're going to keep them locked up for, at minimum, a 10-year sentence. That's going to be a big deterrent on crime. The biggest factor for crime reduction is just keeping criminals in prison. That's just a fact.
When you say harder on crime, do you mean like what do you mean specifically by that? Like, what policies do you think that Pierre's going to actually implement in order to get this done?
Yeah, so
like the 10-year sentence and like the recidivism stuff, I kind of understand, I guess, but like I don't know if crime is like as overblown of an issue as we like to.
It is. There's a lot of
propagandize ourselves into thinking it is in Canada. Yeah, I mean, I've had my car stolen as well. I understand it's bad, but I don't know if it's as bad as we are trying to make it out to be.
I mean,
like, the statistics just go against you in this particular area. I don't think, like, I can pull some up for you here. I don't believe that our crime rates are in any way indicative of like a crime crisis. I don't think that.
If it really depends. Like, if you live in rural Nova Scotia, like, no shit, it's not a big fucking deal. If you live in areas like Pickering, Oshawa, Toronto, stuff like that, there's a lot more home invasions and car thefts. The last apartment I lived in was in Guelph. That's fairly close to Toronto, about an hour away.
I'm familiar with the area.
3 of the people who lived in my building got their car stolen. 1 guy got his motorcycle stolen. The only reason my bikes didn't get stolen is because I actually kept them covered and locked. And I also had my storage unit broken into, and a $4,000 scooter got stolen from there, along with a bunch of other things. I had some like spare boots and shit in there that were a few $100s. The last place I lived in Toronto, my storage unit also got broken into because of the elevator lift system that they had for the parking lot. Nobody got their car stolen, but that was actually a regular issue where people would get their storage units broken into, and there was also a bike lockup, and I had my bike stolen. A few other people had their bikes stolen. And my bike was like a $3,000 road bike and shit. So I've had to deal with that. It's fucking annoying. So yeah, and again, these sort of like petty crimes, they're so fucking rampant. And when these people even get caught, they get a slap on the wrist. They don't even have to post bond. And they just do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And there's a reason why the crime rate has increased like this. It's because it makes money.
I don't know if that's the case, though. Like, our criminal system does not exist where you can commit crime over and over again and keep stealing and then just not face any sort of consequences. That just doesn't happen.
So if you've been found, like if this is your first offense, and I think it's for a certain amount of property that gets stolen, it like there's levels to the offense, you may not have to post bond. So if you don't have to post bond, you can get away with just not showing up to the court hearing, and again, just keep stealing.
I have a question for you. Do you have any sort of like crime statistics in Canada, specifically in the areas that you're talking about, like whether it's like Guelph or Pickering or Toronto or any places like this? Do you have any crime statistics like this, and do you have any sort of indication that Pierre's policies are specifically going to make it so that these numbers come down? Is it going to affect anything? Is it actually going to do what you say it is?
Yeah.
Do we have like any sort of evidence that these things are going to affect this in any real way?
I'm not sure about any specific policy, but I know under the Liberal government they have made a sort of political push for getting rid of mandatory bond, and they have also told judges to take into account things like ethnic diversity and shit when it comes to...
Right, but this sounds like vibes to me, right? Like, this doesn't sound like anything that's super solid.
Well, again...
Also, wait, can I ask a quick question? Somebody said in Canada you guys don't have cash bond at all. Is that true, or...?
No, you do.
Okay.
It's just that they've raised the standard for what is required for bond. So, like, if you commit a murder, or suspected of committing a murder, you're absolutely going to have to post a cash bond. If you've stolen a bicycle, they're probably not going to force you to pay any bond, and they'll just release you. And that's where a lot of the repeat offenses are coming from. They're just letting these people out, and then they'll just steal again, and then they go back in, and then because it's like a petty theft.
Because typically whenever you're paying bond to get out and then eventually appear in court. And if you fail to appear in court, your bond is forfeited, and you might have a warrant out for your arrest. So, like, the system is working as intended if you're paying your bond, getting out, and then
Well, again,
going to court and supposed to pay for whatever it is that you've done, or you're facing any sort of like...
Well, again, they've changed the standards for whether or not you have to pay bond. It's kind of like the crime has to be a bit more serious now. And they take into account, like, again, ethnic diversity and shit like that. And that's been kind of a priority of the Liberal government to have more progressive policies when it comes to this, because there is a lot of controversy with having to post cash bond because of, like, racial discrimination. So they've been trying to...
We do understand, though, that, like, cash bond doesn't necessarily imply that you're, like, being set free, right? Like, you do still have to face consequences, even if you posted bond and gotten out.
I'm well aware of how it works. And, yeah, if you don't show up for your court date, there is going to be a warrant out for your arrest.
I would... Wait, hold on, wait.
Yeah.
Do we all understand here what cash bond means? Like, what a bond is?
Yes.
Okay. Because I would argue that a bond for a criminal is probably going to be more severe than an arrest warrant, right? Because you don't really count on getting arrested again. Whereas for bond is if you are... okay, so for people that don't know, I'm sorry, because I don't know if a lot of people know what bond is. And maybe I don't, actually, you can tell me, okay? When you get arrested, you have to be read your charges at some point. You have an arraignment, and then after your arraignment, where you read your charges, you have a trial date. That trial date might be quite far out into the future. Now, typically, if you're a criminal, you know, you could be arrested and they could give you a trial date, and that might be months or more out, and you might not actually show up. So what's the thing to do? Well, you just keep somebody in jail the whole time. Now, keeping somebody in jail for months obviously has a whole bunch of detrimental impacts on the person's life. So, you know, what do? You don't want to keep this person in jail for months, but you want them to come back. So then they do something called posting bond. And bond is basically you give the court like collateral, like some 10,000, 50,000, Canadian dollars or USD in the United States. And what'll happen is if you miss your court date, I believe then your bond is forfeit. So the goal is to just encourage people to actually show up for their court date. So a bond is probably going to be a more severe penalty than just an arrest warrant, because I think once that bond is gone, it's just like gone. Whereas an arrest warrant is like, well, who cares? You can just keep evading the police, right? So bonds are fairly important, I think. Some kind of bond, maybe it could be proportional income or whatever, but okay, just making sure everybody, yeah.
Well, right, but the point is they're not forcing any people to pay any kind of bond. So there's not really any incentive for them to even get to their court date. And even when they miss the court date and they have a warrant out, a lot of the time, again, they'll just release them from prison again. So
yeah, that is a problem, but I'm failing to see how like any of Pierre's policies would actually address this. Like we both agree, I think, that like people missing their bond, people missing their court days, this is a problem, but I don't really see any push from the Conservative government to actually do anything about it.
Yeah, so what I suspect is going to happen is some of these revolving door policies, especially when you're talking about like some of the recommendations they've made to judges where you take into account somebody's socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity. When it comes to like bail or bond, they're going to get those away, done away with. And it's either going to keep some of these people in prison for a bit longer so they don't repeat offend, or they're going to be more incentivized to actually go to their court date. And I think it is a good thing where if some of these people have repeat violent offenses, that they're going to stay in prison for a longer period of time. Like that guy who just ran over that crowd of people in Vancouver. I don't know what all the facts of the situation are, but apparently that guy has had many interactions with police before. And that policy could have prevented, those 11 people and 20 other injured, from dying. So some of this is a good thing, and one thing that I love the Conservatives for, which I wish this was just the case for the Liberals, I wish they had a spine and they weren't just assholes who are trying to get votes. They are going to protect gun rights. And I suspect, again, under Conservative leadership, you won't see these fucking stupid cases where people clearly used a firearm in self-defense, but they're still getting prosecuted by police because they're defending themselves from home invaders.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, that's not. I don't know if that's gun rights. That would be more like a self-defense kind of deal, right? When you say like gun rights, do you mean specifically like the ways in which you go about like gun ownership? Are you talking about like long rifles? Like, what are you
Well,
talking about?
specifically, they're going to get rid of the handgun freeze. Technically, handguns weren't banned. It's a temporary freeze. And as far as the quote-unquote assault weapons that don't exist, that they're not able to define, and they just created an arbitrary ban list for, they're going to repeal that, and they're going to institute some new law or policy where they can't just arbitrarily ban firearms. They need to actually provide some sort of proof that X gun is actually dangerous, needs to be prohibited, and the government or the RCMP can't just decide. The RCMP can actually unilaterally decide to just prohibit firearms. It's kind of crazy.
Chat wants to point out, and I'm getting some down with some guys, like the Vancouver guy had not been charged with or convicted of any crimes. His police interactions were for mental health calls, and he wasn't guilty. Just as a...
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know about that particular circumstance, but I think it would be a good idea for at least violent offenders, if they do offend 3 times, to get a 10-year sentence, like just keep them locked up. Because
Can I jump in and
been...
No, what do you got?
Yeah.
Can I jump in and just correct a few things? So we're talking about cash bond. Cash bond is not really a thing in Canada. We have a thing called a surety, which is basically someone that's trusted to supervise someone accused of a crime. So basically, they would be the ones putting up money. It's not going to be the accused like in the States where they're saying, I'm going to deposit this money. It's only, you would say, I promise to give this money if they breach a bail condition. So that's not a case in Canada, and also PR is not actually implement. He's not going to implement anything that would be to the contrary. So that wouldn't actually solve anything.
Okay, well, I was wrong about that.
Further, just in terms of bail in general, PR can't really do anything because judges in Canada have like wide discretion to release people on bail orders that they see fit. There's been, like with the Stephen Harper government, there was lots of provisions that they try to implement, like including reverse onuses on bail, where basically the defense would have to prove that they're a public safety threat, which got overturned by the Supreme Court.
The defense, or you mean the prosecution?
Yeah, so usually the prosecution, the prosecution.
Yeah.
My bad.
That's good.
The other way around. So lots of these, like you're discussing, like mandatory minimums and stuff, things like that, have been overturned by the Supreme Court as being unconstitutional. So pretty much everything that Pierce said he's going to implement would just be overturned, including the mandatory, like you said, the three strikes you're out. In terms of 10-year sentences, that's going to be overturned 100%. So.
Okay. I didn't know that. But yeah, still, I do like that he's pro-gun. That's a huge issue for me. So the Liberals trying to ban all these guns, it's fucking stupid. I think it's just cancerous.
If guns were a big deal to you, wouldn't you agree that banning things like trying to have more border security and things like that would be a big deal for you? In terms of home invasions, like you were mentioning, because that's a big deal when it comes to home invasions. People are breaking into homes and usually with the guns and stuff, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure if this is true. Pierre was accused of reducing border security.
Yeah, that's true.
He's said he's committed to increasing border security now.
I mean,
whatever. Yeah. I'd rather have a situation where we have an open borders, but I have a gun, versus, okay, tight border security, but I don't have a gun.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. The Liberals have been pretty strong. I'm saying that we understand that gun crime, and especially firearms, handguns are the biggest thing when it comes to violent crimes in the big city centers you mentioned, and they've been pretty adamant about trying to increase border security.
They want to ban all guns, clearly.
Yeah, no, of course, but including handguns, so sounds good.
Yeah, it's fucking gay.
That's fair.
Can I ask you a bit about housing?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on Carney's housing plan? Saying that he was going to double the pace of home building in Canada with the modular housing?
So
that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So Carney's building plan, as it is stated, is better than what the Conservatives' plan is, as they've stated. The issue is I just don't trust the Liberal government to actually do it.
Right, yeah. So my problem with this obviously is that again we're kind of just going on vibes here. Like I don't.
And the
What am I
Liberals
supposed to
have had
fucking say to
10
that?
years. Like,
Yeah, the lost
mean-
liberal decade. I know, but it's a new guy. The party is under new leadership.
well, you say
I trust
that.
Carney.
You say that, but
Yeah,
Carney's
he's
had
the
a pretty close relationship
federal
with
advisor
Trudeau.
guy. I know. And also not been leading the party, so I'm not entirely certain.
I understand that, but they do have a pretty close relationship. So it's just strange to me that Trudeau would be like the biggest thick-headed fucking
Wait,
moron.
having a close relationship with someone does not necessarily mean that you're doing anything that would influence Trudeau's policies on anything but whatever it is that you're advising him on. It's
the
completely
idea
different
that
when you're the leader of the
Carney-
party and you're trying to...
Right, I understand that. But the idea that
Yeah.
Carney would have never suggested anything, and then, or if he did, Justin would just say, no, we're doing it my way.
I don't think there's any evidence that would suggest that we know anything of what Carney has ever said to Trudeau. Do you have, like, transcripts, records? Do you have any proof that, like, any of this stuff was being influenced by Carney?
No, but I think it reasons to stand that because they've had a close relationship and because housing
I don't
is
think
such
you
a
can
fucking
just,
issue,
like, you can't just make that sweeping declaration. There needs to be any sort of evidence that would point to
that sounds completely unreasonable. Housing is such a huge fucking issue, housing affordability and the rental market. The idea that Carney would have never discussed this ever with Justin Trudeau?
I'm not saying that he never would have discussed it. I'm just saying there's no evidence pointing to him actually influencing Trudeau's policies.
What was Carney's job in Trudeau's government?
Economic advisor.
Okay, so he probably would have been, right? Advising him
Yeah.
on economic things?
Yeah. So, like, again, the only, like...
Wait, somebody said for 4
explanation
months,
here-
then somebody said for 2 years, and then in YouTube chat I saw for 5 years.
Yeah, so the only explanation here is that Trudeau is, like, the most massive, like, thickhead ever? Which, I mean, I guess could be the case. He is a jackass, but it just seems strange. Like, especially since this is being such a huge sore point for a lot of people with hating the Liberals, that Trudeau wouldn't kind of be a little open-minded to Carney's idea, especially since he was the economic advisor?
And to be clear, Carney was not a formal economic advisor to Trudeau, and that was only post-COVID.
Well,
as
yeah.
well.
Well,
was-
yeah, I understand that. And part of the reason is because, like, they're actually... I think they're, like, related by some marriage in their families. So, like, they actually know each other. Like, they have lunch and talk and chat.
Okay, but the way
Okay.
like Pierre Poilievre kind of conveys, like, oh, he's Trudeau's economic advisor. It's not like he was in government. He wasn't an MP. He wasn't elected.
A lot of people are spamming that
Well-
that related thing is fake news also. That's the thing I keep seeing people spam.
Oh, it is? Okay.
He was an informal advisor after the COVID pandemic, and that would probably have very little to do on things like housing. That was more to get out of the crisis, as he did as like the Bank of England when he was doing stuff like that. It was more to like addressing crises. I would be surprised if he had any influence on things like housing.
Okay. Well...
And if he did, if you want to point to he was an economic advisor, things like immigration, which people had concerns about, actually, like, there was policies lowering those numbers. So if you want to say that Carney was his economic advisor in that period, then I mean that would be an indication that he actually had a good influence on his economic.
I'm not convinced. I'm not entirely sure what the exact motivation was for lowering immigration targets. Some people think it was just a cynical decision that made no difference to just address some of the concerns the public had. Because I know
when we say concerns, do we
immigration's-
mean like concerns with like finding work? Is that
Yeah,
like a big
so
concern?
finding work, too many
'Cause
brown
in
people
Canada,
being
we
around,
in
being
Canada we
uncomfortable
have
with
these
Indians.
safeguards. In Canada, we have safeguards specifically to combat things like this. In almost every single city in the entire country, there are safeguards where if the numbers of unemployment trip over a certain percentage, it is my understanding that the government suspends foreign work visas in order to give the native population a chance to recoup some of the unemployment and recoup some of the jobs that would otherwise be taken by those by the foreign nationals.
Yeah, so those safeguards may be in place. That doesn't mean people aren't being affected by it, and it doesn't mean people don't feel a certain way. There was a lot of criticism about the immigration targets. And again, because popularity for the Liberal government was waning, that may have just been a purely cynical decision.
Do you understand that we're like back to vibes again?
Well, I'm not saying that that's why they did it. I'm saying I'm not sure why they did it.
We're not sure why they did what, sorry?
Reduce the immigration targets.
Well,
But
I mean,
even
there's
if it was, like-
probably a bunch of factors that would contribute to that, like your unemployment numbers, mainly, I would imagine.
Even if it was the
Like
case, like
the
you're saying, that they just
safeguards
did
I
it
just mentioned?
for public sentiment,
for optics.
wouldn't you agree that that's a good thing, that they listen to their constituents and then they decrease immigration accordingly? Why would that be incompetent or a bad thing?
Well, depending on how you look at it, it may or may be. Like,
Well,
again, Trump saying that he's gonna lower taxes but raise tariffs and everybody's going yeehaw. Well, I mean, you could say he's listening to his audience.
Okay.
I don't think
I'm
that
just-
that's
I'm
a
just
comparison
saying
to be
they're
drawn, because
low.
in one corner, wait, that's not a comparison you can even draw though, because in one corner you have people who are forming policies based on numbers, and you have people who are voting for these politicians not because of vibes, but because there is a real problem that they actually have to solve. And then to our south, it's a completely different story. Like, we understand this, right? It's not a comparison you can make.
Well, the point I'm making is I'd rather have politicians make policies that are based on some sort of logical benefit to the nation rather than just appeal to some sort of populist ideal, like the firearms bans would be a great example
I
of
think
that.
that you are actually advocating for the exact opposite. I think that you're asking politicians to make choices based on those populism, like based on the populist policies, not based on anything that's like actually in reality.
Like what?
Well, what you just advocated for.
Polyev's entire
like-
crime plan is based in entirely vibes and not the logics and statistics like you've been mentioning.
Oh, yeah, well, maybe.
Well, I don't think it's maybe. I think you can just say that like definitively.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I could be wrong about that. I'd acknowledge it. I just do very much appreciate the fact that he's gonna get rid of the fucking handgun freeze. And the stupid assault weapon ban thing. Guns are a
alright.
great deterrent against crime, let me tell you.
Yeah, the U.S. with all those guns, it's real. It's a
yeah.
real safe country, I think, right?
Yeah, more guns makes you more safe.
All right, that's a take.
Are you more or less safe if you're carrying a gun?
I mean, it's not only me; it's also the people. There's just more guns in general are probably going to make the country less safe.
Okay, well, if you're in Pakistan and you have Muslim terrorists around you, that could be an issue. But again, if the only people who can legally acquire a firearm are law-abiding and they can pass a background check, I don't see what the issue is.
I think we use the term Muslim invaders here, not terrorists. Watch yourself.
Is sand N-word
Okay, dude.
going too far?
Jesus.
Yeah, probably. Okay, outside of housing, which I guess is vibes, and outside of the crime rate, which I guess is also vibes, do you have anything else, or is that all?
No, I would say guns and just having a general distrust of the liberal government to actually implement some of their policies.
So vibes. Okay, gotcha. All right, well.
Okay.
Wait, Persik or whatever. Are you Canadian?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm from Ottawa.
Do you consume a lot of American political content?
Oh, cool. I'm in
Yeah,
Ottawa
I do.
too.
A lot of people like to make fun of me for it. I understand it.
Well, everybody
it's, like,
consumes a
weird
lot of
to
American
be-
political content, so it's not weird at all.
Yeah,
I'm sure even in Canada you guys do.
It's
So.
like, for sure, yeah. I mean, for me, politics is more of like it's a hobby for me, right? Like I love understanding the world around me, and I just I don't agree that because you don't live in the country that you're speaking about that you can't speak about it intelligently. And I get this a lot, but it's also like really satisfying as well sometimes whenever I hear this argument, and then someone like tries to get me on this. I'm like, well, it's like maybe
Yeah, well,
embarrassing.
I'm not trying to get you on
that
anything. I
I'm
was
like
literally
owning you in
just-
your own fucking country, Like,
Yeah, I was literally.
no,
just-
I'm not
agree
accusing
with
you.
you there.
I'm not accusing you. I'm not accusing you.
Okay. The one
just,
thing I
well,
would
I'd agree
one thing
with
I
you.
would think about, I guess just for the audience, because obviously you're opposed to what Big Games is saying. I'm probably opposed to what Big Games is saying. But I will say that this position would be significantly more unhinged in the United States, where you have one party that's trying to govern and another party that's purely self-destructive. In Canada, I don't necessarily think that's been the case. I don't think the conservatives in Canada are anywhere near as insane as the Republican Party in the United States.
Yeah,
Like it would be like if the
Polyev was trying to commit an insurrection and shit,
Sure.
like I'd obviously
or if
not
like
vote
your
for
main
him.
conservative party was like the PCC or the PPC or whatever the fuck, then maybe. But the conservatives in Canada aren't quite as crazy, and it does seem to be the case. I'm vibing this, but it does seem to be the case that liberals have had a pretty wide enjoyment of power over the past decade or so in Canadian politics, and there have been a lot of pervasive problems that have just seemed to have gotten worse and worse. So I'm like a little bit intuitively understanding or sympathetic towards people that are wary of a Carney government, because if it looked anything like a Trudeau government, I think people would probably not be happy in general in Canada. Like I think there was probably a decent amount of pressure for Trudeau to step down for a variety of reasons, especially around housing and immigration. And then smaller cultural issues like crime and guns and stuff seem to be a thing too. So I kind of get that a little bit more. I'm just saying that if you're listening, it's not like a Trump saying this. Like I think in Canada, the criticisms of the left are a bit more legitimate, and the benefits or advantages potentially of the right are a bit more like realistic, I guess. Yeah, but
Yeah, generally in Canada, the worst party is just a little incompetent, whereas in America, the worst party is like disastrous, especially now. But
sure. I will say it bodes
yeah, we're
poorly for Canadian conservatives, though, that Pierre, like one of the reasons why I would guess why the conservatives in Canada have lost so much support is because it does feel like Pierre was trying to hitch his wagon onto the Trump populist stuff. Whether that was by like supporting that cringe trucker shutting down shipping stuff, or the kind of all the populist messaging and the Jordan Peterson stuff. So I think the conservatives are probably eating a lot of crud because of that. So
yeah, I think Pierre thought Jordan Peterson was still like taken seriously, and he didn't really realize. I don't think he really knows much about Peterson, honestly.
well, he's
I
taken
think he just
seriously
knows that
by conservatives, especially by Trumples. That's what I'm saying. I think he was hoping to hitch his wagon to the kind of like populist right stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I
the
think-
trucker convoy thing was super fucking cringe.
I think Pierre was actually running a pretty good campaign as like up until Trump got elected. Like you can see directly when Trump got elected and where the favorabilities have gone. Like it was just pretty unlucky. Like honestly, that Pierre had Trump elected, he probably would have won a conservative majority pretty handedly today. So it was pretty just nothing you could really do. So.
Yeah, one thing that really gives me the ick with the liberal government is it just reminds me so much of like UK politics, like just really bad economic growth, and then they're just trying to take away all your toys. Like, let's just make everyone poor, make housing really expensive, and let's also take away your guns. It just feels nasty. That they try to just take away like all your fucking toys, tell you what to do. This is too dangerous for you. And
I will
then
say that, like,
they
as an
have no
American,
justification for
I have
it,
no,
and then everyone's getting more poor.
Yeah, as an American, I don't. Obviously, we view things a bit differently, I guess. But the gun stuff in Canada also seems super ultra cringe. Like, I think when I was in Canada, like, if you wanted to go shooting, like, for you to have a firearm in your vehicle, I think you can only have it when you're transporting it, like, to and from the range. I don't even think the criminal guy, if he's still here, can tell me. I don't think self-defense with a firearm. I don't think that exists in Canada as like an enshrined.
No, it
is. Is it?
I mean,
it
it's
kind
not,
of does.
not enshrined, but we don't have like our statutes are kind of different than your guys, but it's all based on like the kind of circumstances that you're presented in.
Yeah. But like in the United States, like if somebody breaks into my house, like I have no duty to retreat from my house. I think in Canada,
if someone broke in, no, you don't. If someone broke into your house, you're allowed to kill them.
If somebody broke into your house and they weren't presenting a direct threat to you.
Oh, sure. If they had a gun on them, I meant if they had a gun on themselves.
No. Wait. Stop. Okay, in the United States of America, if somebody breaks into your house, you don't have to do like a threat assessment. If they've broken into your house.
No, yeah, you're right.
Okay. Yes, that's what I mean.
You're right. You have to do a threat assessment. You have to basically determine what the circumstances are and whatever.
Sure, yeah. And then
How
also
about if
like
they don't
Trudeau,
want to get shot, don't break into my house.
Sure. And then also Trudeau doing the having that big gun speech right after like I think it was Uvalde in the United States. It was a little bit cringe.
Yeah, the gun shit's cringe, but the reality is in Canada, like we don't really like other than some people like vegan gains and some like mostly people in like the rural like ridings, most Canadians don't give a shit about guns and they're actually happy about all these like kind of like woke or whatever
I don't know if we're
like gun
happy.
laws.
So I might be biased in this regard, but Canadians on average just seem to not care either way.
Well, that's because my guess is like for all of your Canadians that live like in Montreal or Toronto or Vancouver, or if you're in like the surrounding 2 hours worth of suburbs, most of those people probably don't have much of a desire for firearms or give a fuck.
No one has guns. Exactly.
So all the people you're hearing about are people who live out in like Alberta or BC or like
who are all voting like vastly conservative already. So there's just no political expedience for us to even like entertain that because we're gonna lose those ridings anyways as liberals. Yeah.
I think it's just like a cultural rift kind of deal. Like, we just don't place the same importance on like firearm ownership up here. I don't think. And I think that like most people who are like trying to delude themselves into thinking that like the average Canadian does, I just don't think are being super honest with themselves. I think the biggest reason that I voted Carney, I know it's going to be like super soy, super cringe, whatever, but I'm actually like a super huge fan of his push towards like carbon zero shit. I obviously like super care about the environment and
wouldn't that be a not great reason to support him? Because isn't he kind of backing off? I think he's backing off carbon taxes, isn't he?
He's backing off carbon tax, but his larger plan is to eventually like put us into motion to achieve carbon zero. I believe by 2030 or 2035, I forget.
That sounds completely unrealistic.
Yeah, maybe, but I think like as long as we're in the right direction, I think that's going to be super big for us. And I don't think a lot of people think about it the right way. Like, it's not only for the environment. I think that in order to remain competitive as a nation on the global stage, I also believe that like doing things like this right now to set yourself ahead of everyone else is actually going to be way better than just kind of like shoving it in the back and pretending like it doesn't exist.
I would agree.
Because there will come a point eventually wherever every single developed nation in the world is going to be carbon zero. And then at that point, I think whenever you start putting economic sanctions on countries that aren't carbon zero in order to try to nudge them towards helping the environment, I think that that's like a real possibility in our future. And I think that the way that Canada is handling it, trying to get ahead of it, trying to get like onto nuclear energy and make ourselves carbon zero is going to be super good for us in the future.
I think the real issue with not going to carbon zero is we're just going to run out of gas. I think some estimates are like 50 years. It's like we're going to need to transition away from fossil fuels.
Yeah, probably.
So yeah, like
I thought oil was self-replenishing though.
Like I know they can synthetically make petrol, but you need to it's a more expensive chemical process and shit. So I don't know if it's really economically viable on a large scale.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, I don't necessarily know too much about that. And again, it's like you gotta remember too, like we're not completely phasing like every single thing that has to do with oil or gas like out of the economy entirely. You have to remember that like when you say net carbon zero, like you're not talking about just like carbon zero, like there is zero emissions.
Yeah, the really
You're talking
annoying thing
you're
about
gonna have to like offset your capture.
the annoying thing about all the carbon zero talk that's so fucking irritating on the conservative side is it feels like a lot of conservatives just don't want to invest in green energy, fucking period, and then they disguise it by pretending to give a fuck about poor people's energy costs, which they don't give a fuck. Jordan Cuckerson is like the number one culprit of doing this bullshit where he talks about poor people can't afford it, like they don't give a fuck, and it sucks because there is a reasonable position on transferring over to green energy, and it sounds like Carney has that position that you need to make that transition, but obviously you have to make sure that your energy is affordable in the meantime. You can't just completely throw it all out the window and then hope because you don't have the transition ability to do it yet. But
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with that is that you just unfortunately like lose a lot of the people who, maybe are moderates, but then are also like kind of put off by the whole globalist thing. Like I know even like a lot of my relatives are, I hear them talk about it and they're like, like WEF Carney or whatever, like the NCOs or whatever. You lose those people, but I don't know if those people were ever going to be like brought over to your side in the first place. So, there's not much you can do about those kind of folk, and I'm like super okay with casting them aside if it means that we're actually able to remain competitive as a nation economically in 10 or 15 years, whenever the entire world is like sanctioning those who aren't doing enough to offset carbon.
You know what I just realized? Carney kind of looks a bit like Mr. Rogers.
maybe a little bit.
Like he could be Mr. Rogers' dad.
Okay. Based. Okay.
I can see it.
Well, are we good?
Yep. Yeah, that's all I got.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys, be careful.
All right, peace.
Thank
You
think-
still training?
Yes. Now I'm almost to my old lifts, but I'm not fat as fuck, which is good.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm working my way.
Gotta stay on that alpha male grind set, bro.
Absolutely.
All right, well, take care.
Have fun. Be careful, buddy.